Josh, what happened? I thought you were going to dress up as a James Cameron movie.
Yeah, I am. Don't you see my shirt?
A Disney shirt?
Yeah, I'm dressed up as a sinking ship.
Today on Audience Cut, we're discussing The Abyss, one of the longest films we've watched on the show, and it's ironic because it might be one of our shortest discussions.
Yeah, I feel aggressively neutral about this movie. All of my positives are going to be more things that I liked about the technical side or some visual aspects, performances, things like that. And the film's story and the actual enjoyment of watching it is not what stood out to me. But with that being said, I did not hate it or dislike it.
No, I didn't hate it at all. Looking at it retrospectively and just hearing about like all the things that were invented or invented, created, and the filmmaking aspects just to show what was on screen. This feels more like I'm thinking of like Jurassic Park, right? And how great it is in terms of storytelling and the amazing CGI and practical effects. Like perfect combo. This feels like that. Just take out the good story, and it just feels like this movie was made just to show all this cool stuff we can do. And they're like, oh shoot, we got to write a story. And it's like, well, Aliens was kind of good with that kind of crew. Let's do something similar to the crew was similar to that. In fact, we'll even bring back that same guy. He can be in it. I didn't care about the story much at all, but anytime any of the underwater stuff was going on, how did they do this? This is crazy because everything looked so crisp and real, even on the 4K. Like, oh, caught in 4K, and this movie was caught in 4K, but it wasn't lagging.
Yeah, so neither of us knew anything about this movie. Our patrons voted for this one. And so when I looked it up, usually regardless of what movie we're watching, if I don't already own it, I look it up to see if I can buy it. And this movie had never been released on Blu-ray, only DVD. But just so happened with the timing that as this finally won the poll, because it was on there for a few months, a brand new 4K and Blu-ray edition was releasing. So it was actually kind of hard to get my hands on. I had to go through a couple different places and set reminders of when it would be in stock to pre-order it. Finally got my hands on it, and that is what I have to say. The movie is absolutely beautiful. Watching it in 4K, it is just crazy how good it looks. And it was made in 1989, and I'm sure it looked good even then. I'm surprised that this movie isn't really talked about on the level of other James Cameron movies, you know, Terminator, Aliens, Titanic, Avatar. But then at the same time, I kind of get it, because I wouldn't put this movie in that class. Regardless of what you think about the quality of any of those movies, the social, cultural impact of all of those films, The Abyss doesn't have that.
Yeah, no, especially when you talk about Titanic for what the highest grossing film for quite a long time now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about like the uniqueness and the story of Terminator, of Aliens, and how crazy and unique their effects are, and also the story they told. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but a broken record is right twice a day. And with this movie, I'm just like, the story's lacking, especially when it gets to like the final thing with the aliens, and it's like, look at all the bad you're doing. I'm just like, oh, God, okay.
So this came with the theatrical edition, which is about 2 hours, 15 minutes, and then the special edition, which was released in the 90s on DVD, which was the one close to 3 hours that we watched, and our patrons voted for it. And they voted for the extended edition, so that's the special edition. So that's the one we watched. I went and looked up what was the special edition stuff. Was it whole story arcs, or was it just little things here and there? And I'm actually completely torn, because all of the nice character stuff that we get in here is the special edition stuff.
And if you give me, we might say.
Even scenes with Ed Harris and Lindsay, his ex-wife, a lot of their scenes were all special edition.
What are you still wearing that for?
I don't know. Divorce ain't final.
So it really seems like the theatrical edition was really cut down on that stuff, which was, you know, some of my favorite stuff in the movie when it came to the characters. But there was like one full sequence that was put into the special edition, and it's the alien sequence with showing him the news footage and like the waves coming up to destroy the world. All of that was added for the special edition.
Soviet buildup of tanks and aircraft.
You watch our TV. That's what you're telling me.
So I don't know exactly how it played out in the theatrical. I didn't go back and watch it. I'm guessing they save Ed Harris's life and like that's it. They just bring him back. That was my least favorite part of the movie, and I believe it was yours as well.
Yeah, because the mistakeness of it, and also just how slow. Well, with the 3-hour movie, this extended edition, that's going to happen. But how long they made us wait to get to that. It's like they tease us with the aliens in the beginning. It's like what, and then we go kind of back just to inter conflict with the crew. Didn't they just introduce aliens? Did they kind of forget about it till the very end? And when we finally get paid off with the aliens, it's like, oh, well, look what you guys are doing. A simple, like, hey, dummy, don't do war.
Humans bad.
Humans bad, look,
Yeah.
look.
Okay, that's enough. I get the point.
These creatures are so advanced, it's like, oh, this is bad. Okay, what's your solution? Like, why are you special? Like,
Yeah.
I want to know more about you. Don't tell us how bad we are.
That's why I'm torn, because I think you take that sequence out of the movie, it really helps the ending, and I'm sure that's why they took it out for the theatrical version, because that's like right at the end, and it's just like this out of nowhere messaging that's not really developed. So I'm just like, the rest of the movie, I'm like, oh, okay. I would have much preferred just not knowing, just like not them just being this element of the movie and just like being kind of mysterious. You know what I mean? That's fine with me.
Yeah.
Hey, Josh here. I'm editing this video, and I just wanted to point this out because I don't think we talked about it enough. This movie is insanely beautiful, and shots like this make watching the whole 3-hour movie worth it. Okay, back to the video.
Because if you're gonna explain it, you have to really go into it, and they didn't do that. But with that being said, my fear, if I go back and when I do rewatch this movie, I probably would watch the theatrical just out of curiosity, but I'd be afraid that I wouldn't care at all about any of the characters, because to be honest, I barely did. Like, I did a little bit, and they put all those extra character scenes in there that made me care. So if you stripped out all those, I think I would care about Ed Harris, and that's it.
Yeah, I brought that up. Those are my favorite scenes where they started singing. I'm like, this is the good stuff. So when
Yeah.
things start happening, I'm going to care. And if none of those were in the theatrical, so it's just, yeah, that sucks.
I'm sure there's a few in there. That's why I'd be curious to watch the theatrical and see how it is eventually. But yeah, that's the tough thing about like extended editions or director's cuts or special editions. It's so hard to get everything, because I feel like they sometimes are like, oh, we'll just put everything in instead of like selecting the right stuff to put back in. I think that's maybe what happened here. If we both liked that alien sequence with the news footage, then we would think differently about it. Like, the fact that that's not something we like there's probably a lot of people that did like that part. So that just wasn't it for us necessarily.
Yeah, coming off of Fifth Element and that type of like bad, it's like, yeah, and just in general, I don't like that. I've expressed many times every time that happens. Have a more creative way to explain the problems of the world without saying, hey, look at the problems of the world.
Yeah, like, we know humans suck. We're aware. Show me something I don't know, or show me some, like...
I can watch the news at home for free any day of the week. If I'm paying money, if I'm getting in my car, driving to the theater, it's like, tell me a great, unique story and find a way to get in your messaging of how bad the world is within the world that I'm paying to see.
Yeah, like, I think a good example would be the last audience cut movie that we did, Crimson Tide. The world bad, war is bad is like the driving force of that movie.
Mm-hmm.
But the movie is its own movie within that. Denzel says the theme of the movie, like, war itself is the enemy. But it doesn't bang you over the head with why war's bad. Like, it just expects you to already understand why a nuclear war would be bad. So it goes on with the rest of its movie. This one felt like we had a whole movie that was its own movie, and then these aliens come in and are like, hey, humans are bad. Stop.
Yeah, it felt very similar to Crimson Tide in that sense, where like it was all just a struggle of this. So basically the plot of the movie is that these people who work on the ship were kind of like this commandeered, where they were like, hey, we need to like use your ship to go down and recover this naval ship that was struck by the alien. But one of them is Kyle Reese, and he has that great scene where it's like, oh, something could happen to you with the pressure change.
Yes, Michael Biehn as Coffee.
Yes, Coffee was probably my favorite character, because I'm like, oh, I hate this guy, and I'm like, oh, wait, he's working me. He worked me. Great character, and just watching his slow decline into madness, and just like thinking he's doing the right thing, and like being a military guy with no, because they get cut off from the the surface world, and like he's kind of just left in charge and left to his own devices, and he think he's doing the right thing.
Coffee was my favorite character too, and that's one of the disappointing things too with the third act of the movie is he dies 2 hours into this 3-hour movie. And his death scene was awesome, but then after he dies, you know, I like Ed Harris, and there's good scenes between him and the actress who plays Lindsay, but it's not really like enough to carry it without Coffee. And if you're going to go out of your way to make someone the antagonist, why kill him off so early in the film? It felt kind of weird. He never goes like full crazy or anything, but
A little bit.
yeah, well, I think that's probably just who he was, but also,
Yeah,
but like,
yeah.
it just sets the tone perfectly for this character. And they did a good job with that, with him, with Ed Harris towards the beginning. Like, they did a really good job setting up the character, and I think James Cameron knows, you know, those tricks. Like, he knows how to get you set up with stuff. I just think the, like, actual nitty-gritty writing of what he wanted to do kind of fell short. But the characters were good. I just wish they were all in a better written movie. There were some pretty cool sequences, like when the when the submarine's crashing, being pulled down by the crane, and
Oh, God,
everything starts
yeah.
flooding, people are dying.
Battery room's fucked, let's go!
Can't put that out!
That was all good stuff.
3 crew members on the other side. It's like, you gotta pull the handle, and those 3 crew members just fucking die and drown.
I can't open it from out here! Fella, cut the hose!
And
Drown right in front of him.
Yeah, and that one scene where the door's shutting and he sticks his hand there, and the wedding ring saves him. It's like,
That wouldn't happen.
No,
A
yeah.
titanium steel door.
it would crush his finger. And,
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird to say this. It's a like, oh, it's not realistic in a movie where there's aliens at the bottom of the earth. You know what I'm saying?
Cool. It was a great moment, especially after he threw his ring in the toilet and then dug it out.
Yeah. And the continuity of his hand being blue the entire time.
Yeah.
Kind of nice. And also, like, the whole thing of, like, where she drowns and they have to swim back and he's able to revive her. It's like, I think if your brain loses oxygen for that long, maybe some brain damage there. But,
Yeah.
Like,
You just gotta go with it, yeah.
it's like there's aliens.
The emotional stuff did work. I mean, the scene where she drowns and he has to bring her back, Ed Harris's performance was amazing. And Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, when she starts to drown, you know, I love when actors can make you feel like it's a real moment. You know, when she's convincing him, like, you have to let me drown, but then as soon as she's actually in that moment,
It's like,
she's
wait,
like,
yeah.
she's like, wait, save me, save me.
I changed my mind. No,
Yeah.
wait.
I can't! Help! I'm scared!
Her performance was great too. So a lot of great character moments there.
Come on, breathe, baby. God damn it, breathe! Fight! Fight! Fight!
Everything underwater. When they're in the water, scuba diving, when they're underwater, it all just looked insanely good. And I don't know how they did it. They clearly really did this with, you know, filling up tanks or whatever they did with water. This was not CGI, you know, back then. And it looks much better than CGI underwater today. So, enjoyed that.
Yeah, I've watched plenty of behind-the-scenes featurettes, and I feel like every single one at some point shows that water tube monster as like, oh, this is where it started. And it's like, that's great, but I want to see how they did all the other stuff in this. You know what I mean? Like, I've said this before, but I'm always a double-edged sword on behind the scenes. What part of me wants to like preserve the magic of the world, the other half is like, I wanted to dissect this thing and see how they did every single thing. And this is one of those ones where I'm like, I need to see how they did this. And apparently, I heard like Ed Harris almost died
Yeah.
on set, so.
He almost drowned, I guess. Yeah.
I hope they were filming that. I want to see how that happened.
Yeah, apparently the whole production was a nightmare, apparently, and there's like documentaries about that. So that interests me too.
I love that aspect where it's like, I wonder what it's like for these people, like working on these films. Like, do they think like, are we making another classic, or are we making a disaster? And like I wonder if it's like a good day on set every day. What if the film turns out to be shit? But if it's
Yeah.
like a nightmare on set every day, and it turns out like, I don't know, like The Shining, like it turns out to be one of the best films ever made. I find that whole aspect, you know, fascinating. Like, I wonder if these people know.
I feel like that's probably really stressful to the director, but I feel like that's why everyone else has to just disassociate and just, I'm coming in and doing my job. You know, like an actor, I'm coming in and doing my job. The writer, I'm writing the script, that's my job. But like the director, it's his or her movie.
Yeah,
so-
overseeing the whole, you know, the whole thing's on his name. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's like, especially with like a general audience, they all just put it onto his shoulders. Like, they don't care who the set designer is, or the production, or the the costume designer, the lights department. It's like everything falls on you, Steven Spielberg, on you, James Cameron. So yeah, that's gotta be stressful. Yeah. Have you seen True Lies?
Oh no, was that him?
Yeah, it was.
Oh no, I haven't seen that one.
Neither have I. Have you seen Piranha 2? That was also him. His first one. Yeah, so for me in closing, I respect this film for what it is and the amazing practical and CG effects it has, but in terms of the actual story to hook me in, especially in 2 hours and 50 minutes, it was tough to get through those 2 hours and 50 minutes at some points because it really was slow to drag you along. But overall, I respect that it exists.
Yeah, I agree. Well, let's see what our patrons had to say about our reaction to the movie, which is available exclusively on our Patreon. This one's from Thicket Dweller. I remember going to the theater and seeing Terminator 2 Judgment Day and seeing the T-1000's transitions and facial effects and thinking they were just practicing for this when they did The Abyss. You brought that up while we were watching the movie.
This one's from Nerds Gold. The special edition completely changes the NTIs. Their civilization, their motivation, etc. are all more malevolent. Ask yourself why they didn't do anything during World War II, or why they even care what happens on the surface. Because someone sent a nuclear bomb down to their level, which is nothing to them based on the level of control of water they demonstrate. Yeah, it's like, I don't know, where were the minions from Despicable Me during World War II?
Alright, this one's from Numinous 2019. This is where I first noticed Cameron's limitations as a writer. It's very impressive technically and in many ways groundbreaking. The script, though, doesn't come up with enough of a payoff. Cameron falls back on the escalating action set pieces, Rambo aliens, the working class grunts as the heroes, aliens, and the reestablishment of the traditional family relationship, Ripley and Hicks and Newt. Fine score by Alan Silvestri helps with the film's climax. I agree with all of this, and we never even mentioned this film was scored by Alan Silvestri.
Holy shit, that's crazy.
Didn't know he was even scoring all the way back then.
Yeah, I thought he just existed in 2017 when or 2018 when Infinity War came out. That's awesome. Yeah, I agree with all of that. Yeah, as a director, he's great, but when it comes to the writing, it's fall back on what you've done before. It's like, This one's from Monty Crawford. Enjoyed watching your reactions. Alex was almost falling asleep towards the end. Yeah. The special edition was a bit too long for me, but made the ending totally different from the theatrical release. It made a lot more sense. One of my critical points of the movie, all Bud had to do was disable the nuke, was remove the detonator from the nuke. Cutting the wire at that point was unnecessary. The detonator has to be precisely positioned to set the nuke off, but it made for the dramatic license. Yeah, it's one of those, dramatic scene in a movie.
Yep,
What I mean?
cut the right wire.
Yeah, and you can't tell what color it is. Yeah, it's classic.
It's funny because it's like a classic movie thing, but also knowing that they're always going to cut the right wire. But I did like the little touch in this movie where he's about to cut the one and then he switches last second to the right one. That I did like that.
Yeah, and I love how it's a little bit of a different twist too, because usually it's like, oh, which one do I cut? I don't know which color I should cut. Like they tell him the colors, you just can't tell because he's underwater. It's like, is it the blue one or the gray one? It's like, oh, they're both the fuck.
Yeah, they were the same color.
Yeah.
I'll end it on this one from Jonathan. Josh, you completely summed up my feeling on the movie. It's a filmmaking accomplishment and not boring, with some good acting from the leads. But it isn't a favorite movie for me. If I had seen this in theaters in '89, I probably would have been more impressed and have nostalgia for it, like all the people who voted for it do. Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, look, like we said, I think that it's interesting how there can be some movies like this where, we really like and appreciate a lot of the aspects of it. But I just think both of us are very story-driven in movies. This one had all the technical stuff was great. The story just wasn't there for me. Sometimes that can work, even still, if the technical is really great. So, like, I'm glad I own this movie on 4K. I'm glad I watched it. But it would never be one of my favorites because the story itself didn't have me remembering what happened a few days after.
Right, yeah. People give me shit because I prefer a little more meat on the narrative bone. Like, I need something or someone to help drive this along, where we've seen movies like Skinamarink, where it's like it's all just nothing, and it's like all what you interpret or whatever. And I've grown more appreciation for movies like that, but it's like I also like somebody to connect and attach to. Like I love going to the museum to look at stuff, look at paintings, but I can't sit and watch a painting for 2 hours and 40 minutes. I need like a good film is a mix of all. I feel like you can have your different genres and stuff, but I just need a little more meat to the bone, and the meat on this bone was not my favorite.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily that there was none. It's not
Yeah,
like it's a
yeah.
movie where nothing happened.
Right,
There's
right,
definitely a narrative.
Yeah.
It's just the narrative was fine. It's like, oh yeah, that was fine. Well, with that out of the way, up next is another patron-picked movie. It's going to be Demolition Man. Do you know anything about Demolition Man?
Is that Arnold?
No, it is Sylvester Stallone.
Oh shit! No, I know nothing about it.
That's all I know about it. I think it was in the 90s, and I've never seen it. So
Perfect.
gonna be interested to check that one out. You can see our full uncut reaction to that over on our Patreon, and it'll be on the next episode of Audience Cut. So make sure if you're gonna watch it, come watch it with us over on Patreon, or watch it yourself so you can watch our episode of Audience Cut.